Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel.
Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question asks if I can take a look at the Chris Watts, Nichol Kessinger emails. This is an email exchange that took place before their affair started. And the question really asks if I can take a look at those emails, specifically in light of mental health and personality characteristics, and talk about what those emails predicted, if anything. So I know many people are familiar with this case, so I'm not going to go through the whole timeline here, just a summary. August 2018, in Colorado, we see Chris Watts murders his pregnant wife and 2 daughters. At the time he committed these murders, he was having an affair with a woman named Nichol Kessinger. Eventually, Chris Watts confessed to the murders and is currently serving life without the possibility of parole. All the people I'm talking about here in this video are real people, so just a reminder that I'm not diagnosing anyone here, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. I never met any of the people involved in this case. So we see this email exchange. The first email is sent on June 5th, and the important emails are really sent on June 12th. So this is before the affair started, and of course this took place before the murders took place. I'll put a link to these emails in the description for this video. So many believe that this brief email exchange prognosticated the affair and even the murders. And others believe that it offers support for this theory that Chris Watts had antisocial, narcissistic, or borderline personality disorder. So I'll give my thoughts on all these different components of this speculation on the emails. And when I talk about what's written in these emails, it's not necessarily verbatim. So we see the first email on June 5th, and there's really nothing here in my opinion. Nichol sends an email to Chris and some others about some technology they use for their work. This is all on work email for both Nichol and Chris. Chris replies back only to her and essentially says thanks and have a good day. So I don't really find this as particularly unusual. I know there's been some other ideas kind of read into this, like it was odd that he replied only to her when he said thank you, but I don't really see that as out of the ordinary at all. Now on June 12th, and of course these are all in 2018, again before the murders, we see this email from Nikki to Chris thanking him for being honest with her that morning. So it really just tells us that they had some sort of meaningful conversation. And I think what's odd here is his response. He says he's a straightforward guy and lying just complicates things. So I don't know what he's talking about when he alludes to this idea that he did not lie. It's not really clear from these emails. It's not even clear what he means by being straightforward. What was he being straightforward about? Kind of a mystery here. But either way, he's putting himself forth as an honest and direct person. And then we get to the really important part of his response. He says that he thinks Nichol is absolutely stunning, and from what he's heard, an amazing person, and he hopes that they get to know each other better because they have a lot in common. So this already seems like it's moving down the road in terms of getting closer, but then it gets much worse. Nichol's response is that she enjoys talking to Chris and that she feels understood. And she's also looking for someone to build a beautiful life with, something similar to what Chris Watts has with his wife. She also says it's best to keep the friendship at work, and she'll keep the conversations between them. So Chris responds to this and agrees. He says there's no need to worry. The conversations will stay secret, and then provides his phone number so she can reach him at work. So even in just this brief exchange, these emails back and forth, again mostly on the 12th, it seems fairly clear that there's a signal here that an affair is possible. It didn't have to occur, but there are a few key items that stand out here in terms of infidelity. It references some intimate conversation, or possibly conversations, we don't really know. We see that she thanks Chris for being honest, and she says she feels understood. This is a fairly powerful statement from somebody who's single to someone who's married, right? In this type of work environment, this really stood out to me. She makes it clear she's looking for a love interest, again, somebody to build a beautiful life with. This is even more powerful, and even if the email stopped right here, I would say this would be enough for me to speculate that something's going on here. This is more than just 2 people that discovered they had a few things in common. But of course it doesn't stop there. Chris reciprocates when he says that she's absolutely stunning and an amazing person. They have a lot in common. So Nichol kind of open the door, at least as far as we can tell from these emails, and Chris walks right through the door. So then to top all this off, we see that they make this commitment to keep everything a secret and to keep talking. The keep it a secret part is really crucial, in my opinion. To put that in the email, it's really setting up this idea that they'll communicate and this will lead them on a certain path. I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but again, I think this is a crucial part of these emails. So are these emails consistent with two people that are going to engage in an affair? I would say absolutely. It seems very clear to me. I know that it's easy to look back at evidence when you know the outcome and say that the evidence predicted the outcome, but in this case it really is fairly clear. Affairs are incredibly common, and as a mental health counselor, I've dealt with hundreds of people that have been involved in infidelity. And this doesn't surprise me at all that this type of communication would occur, what I saw in these emails. It really makes sense that an affair would occur after an exchange like this. So what about the idea that these emails predict the murder? We hear this theory that this communication really indicated in some way that Chris was going to commit the homicides. I don't see any evidence at all in these emails to support that. Again, I think it's logical to predict an affair from these emails, but I don't see anything related to homicide in any way in these emails. So what about the mental health type claims about the three cluster B personality disorders, antisocial, narcissistic, and borderline? Well, I can take a look at these individually. So with antisocial, we see that he does appear to be lying. He says he's straightforward, but we know later on, of course, he's not. He appears to be irresponsible and impulsive. But both of them really do this. They're both not telling the truth, right? They're both irresponsible and impulsive here. So what we see with personality disorders, including antisocial personality disorder, is they require a long-standing pattern of behavior. So even if these three criteria were met, and I don't think they were met based on just this, they're certainly not representative of a long-standing pattern of behavior. So we're not even close to the area of antisocial personality disorder with either one. With narcissistic personality disorder, we see, again, with both of them, maybe they're both being a little manipulative. There seems to be a lot of requiring of admiration, or at least liking admiration. But again, nothing that would really be strong enough to meet the criteria, and no long-standing pattern of behavior. The borderline personality disorder theory, I think, is the one that's the furthest out. We see this idea that they were idealizing each other. Well, this is fairly common, and the criterion in borderline personality disorder requires a cycle of idealization and devaluation, not just idealization. So there's really nothing here at all to support borderline personality disorder, and nothing really to indicate that any cluster B personality pathology was present in either one of these individuals. So the emails don't indicate anything about Chris or Nichol in terms of mental health, but that doesn't mean the emails aren't important as we study this case and try to understand this case. The emails do indicate that both of them had a reckless disregard for Chris's marriage, and that they knew they were doing something that violated society's norms. Not the norms in terms of criminal law, like we see in antisocial personality disorder, but they knew that if this were discovered, it wouldn't look good. And that's what I'm really getting at here. So these emails do tell us something about their state of mind, and again, tend to predict what we see happen in terms of the infidelity. So these emails do tell us a little bit something about their state of mind at this point early in this relationship. Now, I know some people are frustrated there's not a clear trail of evidence that leads to the murder in this case, right? This case is kind of a mystery. How did this all happen? How did Chris move from point A to point B? It seems like such a long trip from where things started. Had these emails occur and then about 2 months later, murders occur? Well, these emails don't tell you everything there was to know about Chris Watts, even at that point in June. We don't know at this point from these emails about his childhood, his relationship with his wife. You only see a piece of his personality here. And a lot can change in 2 months. Affairs almost always have a profound effect on how somebody thinks, how they make judgments, and how they process the consequences of their behavior. So really, if we look at these emails and then look at his future behavior, we may not have predicted all of that, but they're congruent, right? They're consistent with one another. What makes these emails so interesting to me is actually the commitment to secrecy. it's really one of the most powerful predictors of an affair. Typically, the recipe for an affair would be a married person who is unsatisfied, another person who is unsatisfied in their marriage, or they may be single. The two people are attracted to one another. They share something intimate, like a conversation about feelings. They keep it a secret, we saw that here, and they fantasize about a life together. So, again, that secret part is something that we see very clearly in this email exchange, right? This is glaringly clear that there was a commitment to keep the exchanges between them from other people. So, of course, there are other aspects to an affair, other steps and stages, but those are kind of the important ones I've seen in terms of treating people, in terms of seeing a lot of people who have been involved in affairs. So this email really didn't start everything in motion. The conversation that they had started everything. So I think that's really the key component too, right? So the emails really just reflect the feelings they had from this conversation. And of course, it's likely we'll never know the contents of the conversation, but I don't really think it's important to know because it's the same thing over and over. People who are in affairs think they've stumbled on something that no one else in the world can understand, a connection that's so profound, so deep, so moving, that it makes them special and extremely fortunate. But it turns out that none of that is true. It's just a common human behavior. It seems exciting and life-changing, but it typically ends badly. So I know whenever I talk about the Watts family murders case, there'll be a lot of opinions, people who agree with me, disagree with me, and have other opinions on this case. Please put those opinions and thoughts in the comments section. They always generate a really interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found this description of the Chris Watts-Nichol Kessinger email exchange to be interesting. Thanks for watching.